Hi everyone, I'm Zita. It's kind of fun to put faces to names. I'll admit I've been kind of dreading this project a little bit because I am very much out of my comfort zone. I'm not crazy about talking about interpersonal, emotional stuff. I far prefer to stick to the academic, intellectual, let's keep emotions kind of distant from it thing. So I hope you'll bear with me as I try to make my way through these complex questions and complex thoughts on leadership. I guess I'll start with where I started in this class because it's hard to say where I've grown without kind of starting from the basics. I had actually taken a fair amount of this curriculum throughout the course of my career as a manager and even during my studies at university, some in leadership courses and some actually in sociology or philosophy courses, which touch a lot on these themes as well. So I went into the class thinking that a leader is a person that people follow. And for what it's worth, I still think that. And I don't think that that's a lack of growth. I think that what it is I came into this with a very firm belief that leadership is subject to its environment. And what this course has done is validated that for me. Going through all of the different readings and discussions and everyone bringing up such unique, interesting point of views on the same topic kind of cements to me the idea that leadership itself is a very abstract concept, that there's no such thing as an effective leader or an ineffective leader without taking into consideration what that specific situation calls for. None of these assessments were able to nail us, right? Like we didn't take any of these and go, me, that's me right there, all of it, that's me in a nutshell. We're all such bigger pieces of puzzles than what one assessment can give us, and our leadership will reflect that, right? It's not as cut and dry as saying, well, you're a manager or you're a leader. Most of us will be combinations of both, and most situations will require an element of both. There are times where you really need to have elements of that managerial role that we talked about that is very kind of non-person specific and much more small picture specific as opposed to interpersonal. And then there are times where that will completely fail, and you usually want to have a blend of both. Personally, I am a bit of a reluctant leader. It doesn't mean that I haven't had a lot of leadership opportunity. I've certainly had my fair share. I just am not someone who's sought it out necessarily. I like to act and lead when the situation calls for it. And I think that over the course of the last 30 years, I've gained a fair amount of self-awareness of knowing what I'm able to bring to the table when there's a seat for me added, but also of recognizing and knowing when that seat shouldn't belong to me and when I am not the right leader for a situation. When we were talking about our values, one of the things that came up for me, and I'm sure you would have seen it in any of the discussions that we had, was social justice. I am really, really passionate about human rights and human equality. Every day more and more so, actually, as I see a world that is evolving with all of these big questions about what does equality really mean? What does that look like? I used to believe, and I've always been really passionate about social justice, but I used to believe, right, I'm going to lead these causes. I'm going to throw myself head deep, and I was part of every charitable organization in the world doing my part to make the world a better place. What I didn't realize back then, and what I think I'm coming to realize more and more every day, and what this course evoked for me as well, is that sometimes the best leadership role you can play is understanding when you are not an appropriate leader and when your voice is not the right voice to lead the movement. An example of that I would say is learning to listen to a marginalized group instead of speaking for them. One of the phrases that we have in the social justice community is around the concept of ally, and people will talk a lot about, I am an ally to this cause. And what that means is that you feel strongly about the cause and that you are moving forward the cause, but that you're not directly part of the cause. You are not actually impacted by the issue. So a white person being an ally to the racial equality movement, or someone who is cisgendered or cissexual who is supporting LGBTQ rights, things like that. And the phrase that has come up and that really strikes me is the idea that to ally is an action, not an identity. And what we mean by that when we talk about it is it's not really up to me to tell you that I'm an ally. It's up to the community to recognize or deny me that title. You're not an ally because you decide you are. You're an ally because you actually serve the movement. And that service model is really important. And no one can decide who is or is not an ally to the movement except for the people who are actually part of that movement and are actually impacted and directly involved in the movement. So the best you can hope for as a supporter of any cause is that your actions will amplify and will shed light onto the efforts of people who are marginalized, who are trying to assert their own authority and their own power. And when you don't realize that the cause isn't yours to crusade, sometimes you run the risk of being a really ineffective leader, even with the best intentions. So that's something that in my 30s I've kind of sort of come around to, and this course really solidified for me the idea of picking and choosing when your leadership is the most effective and what you bring to the table when it comes to skills. So I guess that brings me to sort of the second part of the question, which is what does my leadership look like? I actually tossed it out to my Facebook. I said, guys, talk to me about my leadership. What does that mean to you? And one of my friends shared a meme, and the meme was, I'm actually going to see if I can pull it up, but the meme discussed how when a woman says, quote unquote, first of all, you shouldn't argue with her because she has prepared graphs and charts and research and she is going to destroy you with all of her knowledge. And my friend had taken this meme and had replaced it with a woman. She crossed out woman and she put Zita. And I asked her, I said, what are you getting at? Are you saying that I'm going to destroy people? And she said, no, but your leadership is really, really finely centered around knowledge. And that really sat nicely with me. I thought about that and I said, yeah, that's a big part of who I am. I've never related well to the idea of empowerment, that whole concept of empowerment. I guess I'm insecure or uncomfortable with the idea that I have the authority to empower anyone else. I think everyone has their own power, and that power is intrinsic to them. And it's not up to me to give someone power. What I can do is I can help to discover it. I can help them to unearth it. Kind of like an architect of empowerment, for lack of better words, right? Digging at old fossils and making our way through these years and years of belief that the power isn't there. And the power is usually really deeply ingrained in that person. They just need to have it discovered. So I like to think that I discover power and I help people discover their power. I like to think that I equip people with knowledge and with a sense of security. I like to think that where there is fear, I bring an element of faith and belief that if we just dig, they'll find what they want at the bottom of this really, really deep fear of what they're capable of. And that has been my experience anyway, when I took on, because I went through a really significant life change in the last couple of years. I lost about 100 pounds and really reinvented myself and my identity and my career after I had my kids. So when it comes to the kind of leader that I am, I guess I think of myself that way. I'm a bit of an archaeologist or a paleontologist of power. Let's dig deep and find out what's happening at our core. When I was asked in our course to do our vision statement, my vision came back to fitness is for everybody. So 2 words there, everybody. And health is for everyone. And ultimately, the phrase that comes back to me all the time is from our physiology class, right? We talked about action potentials and how one thought in the brain can trigger these huge reactions in the body and stimulate movement and contraction. And I guess my leadership desire, my goal, is to help every person discover their own action potential, right? What is hiding inside us that we don't even know exists? And how can I help you see for yourself what I see from the outside? So lots of growth in this course, mostly from what you shared with me, all of you. And it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you and getting to know how your minds think and how you see the world. And I wish you all the very best, and I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks so much.